and thank you in advance for watching this. What we're about to go into are a series of artist talks as part of a series that we had launched as our form of participation for the Fall of Freedom initiative. JTR Presents is a contemporary art museum that offers design services that helps the creative community, helps the community in general, and we seek to positively impact our community and environment through art, tech, and design. So, in relation to this initiative, Fall of Freedom, it started off with 16 artists that did a call to action about 6 weeks ago. And the call was for anybody in the arts to do something, be it in their programming, a project, something for the 22nd and 21st of November of this year as a way for us as a creative community to push back and call out the current administration and their actions against creative institutions relating to censorship, justice, community, truth, and freedom of expression. This is our community's way of saying that we will not be silenced, we will not be censored. We will still continue to fight for justice for all. We'll still continue to fight for freedom for all. And we stand by our communities, especially those that are marginalized. In addition to that, we exercise our freedom of expression. We exercise our First Amendment rights in really pushing back and holding our government accountable. And so with that said, we will be moving on, and I present to you the following artists. Indrani, first and foremost, thank you so very much for your time and patience and willingness to be a part of this.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I think this is a really powerful topic or topics, and
Yeah,
to discuss it.
absolutely. And with your work in particular, I think are very poignant and powerful, especially about, well, we'll get into it a little bit more, but relating to women's rights, I find your work to be very feminist and also talking about bodily autonomy. And, you know, we can go a little bit more into it. So I remember your work when I was an intern with Edie Carpenter at Greenhill. And we got to see these beautiful, paper cutouts of your work that were framed in these sort of paper sculptures. I think your recent work, I think it's called Sacred Words or Sacred Words, reminds
Sacred
me
Words
of
is
that.
one of them. Yeah, it comes off from that series actually.
Yeah. And so, and thank you for being a part of this, because this Fall of Freedom and this call to the themes of, you know, talking about censorship, injustice, community, truth, and freedom of expression were themes that were very important to Dred Scott, Castles, and all the organizing artists that did this initiative. So how do those themes inform your work? And I think we can go in so many directions. In particular, I think of yours about injustice and community, as a lot of your works addressed patriarchy, it addressed
Misogyny.
racism,
Hidden
misogyny,
racism,
in the US, but
invisible
also
caste
caste
system, hierarchy.
Yeah. So I think there's a lot of angles we can go. By all means, I'd love, maybe we can start there.
Well, I would say that, you know, my work kind of revolves around our history of race, caste, hierarchy, social hierarchy, and how do we see almost it rooted in religion, you know, especially Orthodox religion, which is sort of ingrained within our society, every fragment of our society. And I often use religion, and I feel that almost everything originated from religion because it is a very hierarchical pyramid shaped structure. And I'm talking about most Orthodox religion, Abrahamic religion, as well as Hinduism. Um, uh, the three Abrahamic as well. These are some of the most ancient and very structured, based on very rigid structure, and often kind of feed on that hierarchy, feed on that patriarchal kind of notion and structure, and very misogynistic, because that's what I find, and I almost directly use it in my work, in terms of using the text or the words directly from the scripture in many cases. Red bodies, for example, the sacred word you mentioned, do that. But I also, let me know if I'm moving away from your question, because it's a broad question, I know. So that is the most important thing. And I will say that what I do, what I create, I might say audacious bodies of brown, black, and women, which always have been a site of violence. That's what I create. And I try to decolonize my thinking more recently, even in the recent years. And instead of moving from an easel sort of structure of colonial painting or oil painting or something, I like to say that when I grew up in West Bengal. So I grew up within the culture of women's culture, observing in our household the rituals and so on. Often the religion never bothers us, and I was fortunate to be born in a household within family where it was never forced on our generation. In our earlier generation, I have seen our grandmothers, my second mom was my aunt-in-law's, my second mom. My mom was a medical practitioner, and she was a physician. So, but she did worship and so on, but it was never imposed on us, as I see sometimes within Indian culture. So that kind of helped me to grow up questioning things perhaps, and see religion as a more cultural aspect of it, and not necessarily something I have to obey, I have to follow. If I do not do it, something really terrible happened to me. It was never told to us, you must do this. So that, I think, was the fortunate. So within my practice, I try to I'm going to go back a little bit. In my art school, I did concentration in printmaking, which was, very Western kind of practice, as lithograph, etching, and all that. Of course, certain aspects were very, very old and were sort of grown within the ancient cultures, like Asian cultures, for example, woodcut and so on, and was a very old part of, even say, Indian and other Asian cultures. But the thing that I liked the most, came from those things, and the very rigid rules that you must be done this way, you cannot deviate this way. So there were all those rules. So I kind of almost looked at those things, like the religion itself, how it kind of tries to conform to certain rules and certain rigidity. And my practice, which was at that time coming out of art school into printmaking, I mean, I loved printmaking this. So I kind of, it was, the audacity was to break this rule. That's what I felt. That was my first time I probably revolting or rebelling against the system in my
Yeah.
own way.
And I feel like that continues. Like, forgive me, the name escapes me, but there's a series that you did that has like these hands and with these bent wire hangers. And I
Yes.
remember reading about kind of what you were saying is like that is like a way of defiance against
Mm-hmm.
the hierarchy. But you always struck me as a rebel in a way. As I kept learning about your work, I want to circle back about
Mm-hmm.
what you were telling me about the religious community
Mm-hmm.
and as a cultural experience too. Another piece that you sent me was called "All Red Riding Hood Do Not Come Out of the Forest Safe and Whole," and that
Mm-hmm.
spoke to me a lot about community, especially the awareness of like collective suffering that women have gone through, or red bodies actually,
Mm-hmm.
in particular. And so I guess with these works, right, and what you're elevating through your craft, what is community in from your experience, and how do you maintain it? How do you build it?
Community is vast and is composed of people, humans of all kind. And often in media, we see what is projected is the strong and bold and beautiful. But there are who are probably not strong. So I feel that I feel the need to be more inclusive. So the all red riding hood do not come up in the forest, safe and whole, comes from that we talk about this, we read about the story of Red Riding Hood and her victory in defeating the big bad wolf. But we often neglect and push away the ones that could not, ones that do not have, I wouldn't say courage, but they're under circumstances where they have no voice. And I feel that we need to bring them along with us. We need to focus on that aspect, because that's what probably, that's what one of the drawbacks that we often think about, or we should always think about the weak and strong, because not because sometimes it's a personal choice, but circumstances sometimes make them. So, for example, I mean, the whole thing, that particular series, um, well, so there's a striking opposite between red bodies, which comes out strong body or pouring red. It's a strong body of this red that's coming out of a small opening. Because they succeeded, they were able to finally break down all those barriers and able to emerge and continue. So
Mm,
something helped them to
beautiful.
strengthen themselves. But that does not always happen unless we all lend a hand, unless we bring those forgotten or the weaker ones in limelight, and focus and shine light on those issues. And the reason I say that, um, the two things I will say, two scenarios explain that I worked with survivors for a long time, and that came out. I started with regular artwork, the installations and so on. The body of work that you saw came out before I actually literally met them and did interviewed them, and they resulted into documentary films. I was not able to
Oh,
show
wow.
those films at that show, but the work on paper, and they were. And they did not have a voice. So I found out about this issue. I'm not the first person, but then the area, the part of India where I went to, the particular villages, nobody has ever gone to. So because I took the trouble and find out about it, and I had help from those activists, social worker, who were acting, working with these women to find out their story. They took me to these villages. I mean, had tremendous help. So, so that collective effort helped me to bring stories of those particular women, who were not heard before, from those 5 villages. They were never heard before. So that's what I mean, that they were still suffering. And as a result of that, a lot more people got to know about that. There are women who had gone for a walk, or a hike, or their morning exercise on a trail, and never came back home. And there are tons of them. There are rape kits, still backlog, huge backlog of rape kits in our states, many states. North Carolina, only in 2024, cleared the backlog.
Oh,
There are,
wow.
out of 50 US states, at least 40, 41, 42 states still have child marriage legal. And
Yeah,
in
I
the
recently heard
farms,
about that.
yes, in the farms where very few people really get to know what's happening, women are still being tortured, still being violated, wives are still being burned literally and held
Right.
captive. They're legal marriage, within the legal marriage even. And nobody knows about them. And
Right.
women just disappears and nobody cares. And brown and black and brown women disappears and never even anything happened about that. So that's why I mentioned brown and black bodies, you know. You don't even
Absolutely.
hear them about media. So these are some tremendous things that are happening. And I feel, I mean, I did the documentary, it was tremendous. It took 10 years of my life to do 2 documentaries because it's a tremendous amount of work and I had to start from scratch. So I find that I have done 2 and then followed by an experimental video. But I find that it's very difficult. Experimental videos are easy, but documentary is extremely difficult work. And sometimes they're not appreciated because they do not, they're, people do not really, people gravitate towards, you know, award-winning fiction and narratives and so on. But the
Right.
documentary filmmaker doing tremendous work. So I feel that these are, in terms of what we can do, how we can break that censorship is to bring the stories out in whatever form we can. Sometimes it is easy to work with the community. Sometimes for every individual, it's not so easy to work with the community. But in my own way, at least I can talk about them in my work, and however I can break these rules, you know, be audacious
So,
and
yeah.
present the stories.
Yeah. So, in the spirit of that, right? And I think you partially answered this already, but like, what does resistance look like to you in the creative industry or your practice? It's like right now, what I'm hearing is a lot of your work is really about just having the conversation and raising awareness. But in your words, what does that resistance to these issues look like to you?
Um, I did 2 recent really series. One was voice series, the one you're talking about, bodily autonomy, um, and this one just last year. The one I that was bodily autonomy, voice series. So I call it voice series because voice, I see voice as noun and verb. It is a noun at the same time as you have to talk about
Yeah.
it. And that one was
Interesting.
the hanger, black hanger, metal hanger. I use black metal hanger. This, I will not say most of my series goes on and on forever. I still have at least 95 hangers, black hammers waiting, maybe to do an installation. It hasn't happened yet.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and
Yeah. I
then
can't wait to
followed
see it.
by this year, um, uh, toward the end of this is 2025. Yeah, this year I produced another short series called Her Armor. So that was about breaking this
That's
rule
my
of
favorite, by the
where
way.
those words. So I would have sent you an image. So I literally did garment. Okay, so I did a helmet. How do we in this? I probably will. I will read a little bit from my Her Armor. Let's say.
Please. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Um, So what I was said in my artist talk, what is the color and form of resilience? Why must a woman be strong and tough? And I gave you the backdrop. Why must a woman? Those Red Riding Hoods who never came out of the forest. Her Armor series is of these girls and women. Life has taught them to be tough. WHO estimates that around 1 in 3 women worldwide experience physical and or sexual violence from a partner or a non-partner in their lifetime. RAINN statistics indicates that every 74 seconds, someone in the US is sexually assaulted. According to UN Women, commenting on feminicide and femicide. Globally, an average of 140 women are killed every day by someone in their own family. While a female fetus,
wow.
so my thing is, I'm a woman and I'm a mother. I have a daughter and I have a son. So while a female fetus is unable to protect herself, her mother can. Her armor becomes her second skin. What you wear is almost, it projects your personality, is who you are, right? You choose your own garment. Just
Yeah.
as a cactus transforms its leaves into prickly spines for defense, she grows metal thorns on her waist, embroidered hands off on her bustier. So I did a bustier which had metal spikes on each side. I think I sent you the picture. And surrounds her
Yes.
head with a protective gear. Fusing craft and technology of East and West, and I took help from women technacia, which are badass women artists as well, doing great things. I fabricated a head protection and a bustier top. Needle felting with red roving creates a soft exterior and the headgear strong inner metal structure. She's soft at the same time she's strong. A cowrie shell, and I had a cowrie shell which comes from my native Bengal. Reminds me of where I come from and what women go through there. Their wife burning happens in India, and I have seen at least two people I know were burned with stove explosion, which is a way of killing a bride actually, and call it
Oh,
an
wow.
accident. Um, so the worst hands off are embroidered on her bustier with running stitches using a quilting done by Bengali women. And quilting stitches, it tends to be running stitch. I like the word is running stitch because it's energized and energetic. And it is done mostly by women called quilting. Um, and the second one was her armor 2 and 3. They're actually tops, and it has words on it that I have used in, I think, in voice series, and some of it might be on my Red Bodies and some of this as well. And I talk about this that the orthodox practices within Abrahamic religions and Hindu laws prescribed by Manu continue to limit women's right. Manu says a woman must never be independent. In some Abrahamic sects, women are still forbidden to worship in public prayer houses with their male counterparts, seen without covering most of their bodies, disallowed to speak in public, nor permitted rights to their bodies. In 2022, the US Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, eliminating the federal constitutional rights of a woman to abortion. In July 13, 2022, a 10-year-old child rape victim was forced to travel to Indiana from Ohio for an abortion. So her armor 2 and 3, they are both body wear and were conceived to challenge these presumptions. So the garment has become her second skin, asserting her independence and rights to her body. So that's how I want to show it, that I actually plan to wear them also. And I hope that I can encourage other women to have garments like that. And I will create for them if it's necessary. So to me, that's to me, in a way, you're connecting with the community as well, connecting with your peers. And I will say one more thing I have to say, it is my work is feminist, but I don't see it as women are the only ones who has to bear the torch. It takes two hands for things to happen. And men and women, if they walk side by side and work on this side by side, then only things can change in a radical way.
Well, that's a beautiful counter to a narrative I remember growing up about, because I think in the early 2000s, there was this misconception about feminism just being another form of man hating, which was very
Absolutely.
misleading,
Mm-hmm.
incredibly misleading. And I remember Emma Watson at some point kind of made this speech that was in a similar spirit about this is a collaboration
It is a
that
collaboration.
Yeah, I mean, and that collaboration and the relationship is what we consented to be, and that was an interesting expression to counter that narrative. Now, so your work is very poignant in the sense it got, like you said, it connects with community, it gathers collective voices. And so it makes me think about this next question that I had about aside with social issues of any kind, in this case, women's rights, bodily autonomy, and equal rights to women, aside from protests, how else can artists and designers really contribute to the social causes that matter to us? I think your work sets an example of that, but I'd like to hear more.
Well, if it is an artwork, there's no other way but to exhibit it. And you hope people see it. And the one thing we have, I will say, the social media has made things more accessible to everybody. Beside
True. Yeah.
having it exhibited within four walls, the social media are fluid. And if I put my work there, if I put my voice there, what I have to say there, I like to think that more people will see it, more people will respond to it, or more people will take something from it. And if I want to say that, okay, I'm being audacious, I hope I can transfer that favor to others as well. And other than that, actual community project, that's what something I try to do whenever I can, and participate within a community. Let's say that sometimes, for example, this the last project where I actually went to garment. Sometimes I made a documentary. I had to think that yes, aesthetics matters to me a lot. Beauty matters to me a lot. How I'm saying it from an artistic point of view, but at the same time, I feel it is also sometimes it's also important to make it simple, make it easy for an average person to understand. Not saying that I have to dilute it or I am seeing somebody who is not beneath me in terms of understanding it. Believe me, sometimes a very simple person, or I think it's a simple person, gets my work so well when another person cannot, very highly educated person. So I don't think one has to be educated to understand art. Sometimes one has to just have that rapport to connect, that emotion within, that. So I will say that sometimes to make it simpler, make it more accessible, available to people, either is social media or documentary filmmaking or community project where I work with the community, and this whole thing that I just told you about that. Um, in terms of how men and women need to come together, because a woman cannot simply talk about feminism and expect to change it, because there is other counterpart, the male part, and the society is of both. And it's not just now we have a very broad definition of what society is, what gender definition is, and we need to be inclusive. I think community project can help to bring this together, and we need to examine the word feminism. Definitely how feminism originated with, the French feminism, where it started with burning brown, all that. Okay, that was an initial thing. You had to be audacious. You thought that will do it. But at the same time, that came with a baggage of race and culture and who is superior to who. Often black and brown were forgotten or seen as inferior, seen
Right.
as somebody not intellectual enough to understand it, So we
Right.
have to think uh, uh, from a level which is like a flat ground level where everybody is equal. First, we have to
Yeah.
understand that everybody is equal. Everybody has equal right and equal interest,
Yeah.
to work on this thing. And hierarchy begins at birth. Gender inequality begins at birth, from the time you're born. It is ingrained, is indoctrinated to you what color a boy should work, what color a girl should work, and what happens if it's not boy or a girl. In India, still a practice that if there is a genetic mutation or something, so you do not have a clearly identified gender, that child is thrown out of the society's outskirts of society. There is a name for those people, and it's still there, and they're still
Wow.
stigmatized. Yes, they are literally thrown out the culture. They're not part of the society. So we
Oh,
need to
yikes.
examine and look at and break those barriers. And religion creates those hierarchies. We don't even
Right.
realize that it does that. But I took a little interest to look at some of the scriptures, and it's horrific
Yes.
of what it says about these things. So we all need to come together. We need to break those things, break
Right.
those sort of boundaries, those walls of what a boy should be, what a girl should be. We need to look at children's literature, what is being said to them,
Yeah.
because everything starts in those days.
In a way, I feel like art and design is a religion of itself, or at least a counter mechanism to religious
Mm-hmm,
structures. At least the way I've been seeing artists leverage that against these harmful systems that are
mm-hmm,
perpetuated and supported by
yeah.
religious institutions. And that's kind of my thought more so. It's like I see art and design facilitating space to hold these kind of conversations, raise
Mm-hmm,
awareness, and then design's really pushing for action in a way. So
yes.
I kind of want to expand on that a little bit from your experience, what you've noticed and what you've done. How can the arts and design fields, how can we amplify their role in the fight for freedom and change that we're looking for?
It's a very difficult one, because art world is also governed by money, glamour. The typical what is in the society, art is not out of it. You have the Sotheby's, you have all of those things. You have how you become famous, how you get to be seen in galleries, and you have to sometimes in order to in order to do that, you have to create a formula for success. And when you see certain type of art is working, you just stick to it, so you become a product. So art has become a product, and like anything, everything else, I try not to give into it, but it's not easy. I try not to give into it. So as an interdisciplinary artist, I mean, a multi and a little bit of interdisciplinary, because I sometimes will write, and that will become part of a project. For example, All Red Riding Hood is based on these 7 sentences. Each sentence has 2 lines. So there are these little white. I basically created a graveyard, and each has an inscription, debossed writing that was used in letterpress was used in making them, and it talks about invisibility. So to me, if you continue to experiment, continue to look at your concept, what is the important thing, how can I relate this, break it down to so that we can filter in the community more. I am not a performance artist, so it becomes very difficult for me to. Not everybody can do everything, not everybody is everything, so I cannot go out and do a performance and have people gather around and gain that kind of visibility. I can only do certain things quietly. Maybe I feel that people like me, perhaps we can do more community projects, try to take certain things out of the gallery, which is a very, very difficult thing. If I make an artwork, where do I show it? how do I show it? And that's what I know to do. So it becomes very difficult, but I feel if I continue to find new language constantly, continue to reach out to the community, that's probably one way. That way I'm pushing my design and I'm making it more provocative, something to provoke, whether I'm using word or whether I'm using a form or whatever I'm using. So that to me, if I'm trying to be forceful, definitely I'm going to try to invoke or come up with a new formula. So to me, artists have to simply always have to be on their edge, perhaps we can say that, to try to say things in a more graphic, more tangible way, perhaps, where it can touch, you know, touch things,
Yeah.
people, society, happenings,
Yeah.
things like that.
Right.
And instead of being comfortable, getting comfortable with the idea of how can I sell work, what is the product, and how can
Right.
I just stick with the product and just and call it my style. I mean, I find it very, very difficult, and I just continue to have the common way you'll say, push the envelope, or I keep pushing
Right.
myself, how I want to say it, or why I say it, and what makes it forceful. To me, I will say that that's what it is for me.
Of course. And I think what I'm hearing is this sort of balancing act, less so a balancing act and more of just in that balance, always lean in and prioritize the ability to connect,
Mm-hmm.
to empathize, and to communicate, which makes the most sense. I think the biggest value in the arts is education and
Mm-hmm.
communication.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that should always be a focus, even
I
in
I
the process of selling and making work.
Yeah, yeah. There's a beautiful thing, I did on one of my earlier project points was this was built on otherness or genocide. Can you see me or am I getting blocked? I wanted to read a little quotation, just a few words.
Yeah.
So, well, it was when Darfur happened in 2004. Darfur is happening again. It's now going on again, and that's why
Yep.
this work is in my mind a lot. Where I decided I'm going to depart 360-degree from what I was doing, and I started to knit because to me, otherness is about when you lose that connection with other human being. And Mohsin Hamid, a writer, has said something very beautifully. The empathy is about finding echoes of another person in yourself. When you don't see your other in yourself, then you do not consider the other as a human being, and then you just lose everything. Then you don't have to regard that other person as human, and you can then do anything with that person to erase that person from this earth.
So, as I'm thinking about this and also want to be mindful of our time, there's two things I kind of want to touch on. And I think that would be good for the night would be, I'm also thinking about this idea of responsibility. And I don't know if you ever met him. There's an artist, he's the director of the visual arts program at A&T, Roy Miko Carter. He's my mentor. And I remember in our program, he would drill into our heads it's important that we take responsibility as creatives because we're image makers. We set the
Yes.
trend, we influence the culture, we change the culture through our work. And
And
so with that, I think about what are those implications of whether it be personal or political, what are those implications from the things we create? And what do you think is the responsibility of the creative? Assuming we have responsibility at all.
I will say it's a very difficult thing to describe. I mean, some artists would say that I don't have any responsibility. I'm here for aesthetics, and I'm creating. It is for other person to see what they see in it. I, however, had decided that I have to be an artist. And when I grew up, I am myself a kind of product of a mixed child. My mom was from Bengal, which is northeastern part of India. My father was from the very tail end south of India, which was Kerala. The language, the culture, the food, the dress, everything is totally different. People think India is very homogeneous. It's not actually. It's a very heterogeneous structure. Each state has a different language. Each state has a different food, different clothing, everything different.
That's
As a
fascinating.
child growing up, I grew up on my mother's side of the family. And my dad worked with central government, as every 3 years, his job took him to another city. So, and my mom was a physician, so her practice was in different times. So I was, at age 5, I was sent to my grandfather's home by my mother's side, where I grew up. I went my schooling, and I grew up with my cousins. I was the only child from my mom and dad's marriage. Um, and I always knew I was something different. I was not the same. Something was always slightly said that I was slightly different. And that so that stayed with me, and I knew. So that certainly, as a child, it made me uncomfortable, and I can see how mixed biracial children can be. And my husband is African Barbadian, so I went another step ahead. Both of us, he married an Indian and I married an African Barbadian, and our children are mixed biracial, and I'm sure they suffered too. And so, um, okay, I think I forgot your question. Quickly tell me.
No worries.
That
What do
happens
you
to
think
me.
are, no, it happens to all of us.
Responsibilities? Yeah.
Yeah, what do you believe the responsibility of the
Responsibility
artist
of an
is?
artist. Yeah. So for that reason, because I experienced these things, and have seen things, and we directly, after coming to the US, we migrated here in post 9/11. 2002, my husband came in. I came in
Oh,
2 years
wow.
later. Our children came in 2003. So you can understand, we
Yeah.
all coming in where there's a tremendous hatred towards others. And I
Yeah,
could
the height of
pass
it.
for a Middle Eastern. My daughter can pass she has curly hair. She can be an Egyptian, for example. Both of us almost always got patted down at the airport. I still get patted down. I still get the randomly selected for being patted down. Okay.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah,
So
even when I was in France, I had the same issue.
yes, so there you go. So all those things, because I saw it, I know what it feels. So I know what others like me feels. So that helps me to connect. Fortunately, I am very grateful about my heritage, grateful that I was born that way and I married this way, so that I can see these things, understand them more. Okay, so I even don't like the word empathy so much. To me, I want to be one with you. I am you, you are me.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay.
That's how
Yeah.
it is. So I had to acknowledge that I am an artist. I don't have the luxury to simply paint a flower. Even if I paint a flower, it will be a different kind of flower. It will say something about this hidden pain or hurt, or what is in there. So I have assumed that role for myself, but I cannot say everybody have to do that or must. They have to decide. So for that reason, I like to reinvent, or what I have to say, how I have to say, so that I can reach it, reach people, reach my community, and and pass that message on, so that they understand. Perhaps it makes them more conscious. Whether they were conscious or not, I hope it can shake up things a little bit more. And I say that is my role as an artist.
Yeah, no, the thing that kind of stuck with me for a minute, like again, not even liking the word empathy, I it reminds me of a conversation I had with one of my uncles, and he had
Hmm.
mentioned he's not a fan of empathy either because it's just
Yeah,
understanding. You
it's a very
need the
one of those
emotional.
top thing. You're coming
Yeah,
from the top. It's very much
right.
like that.
Yeah, so he was like, it has to come from the heart too. Like you have to care. And so like that's when I
Yeah,
started thinking about this idea of compassion, right? Like being led by
yeah,
compassion. And I almost in I say that to say sometimes I feel as though the things that I think are a must, I have to be reminded that these are still options. Because like
yeah.
for example, the last question I have is about privilege and access. And so I'm going to phrase the question the same way as this last one, right? About
Mm-hmm.
responsibilities. Are we obligated to leverage our access and privilege to advocate for other people and for these changes? If
I think
so,
we
how?
have, yeah, please go on. Yeah.
No, I'm saying if so, how? And if not, why?
I feel that we always have to push ourselves. I didn't think I had all the privilege when I came to the US, being a brown person. I did not think growing up, I almost knew in an unsaid loudly to way that I didn't feel like South Indians are seen as Dravidians and North Indians see themselves as Aryans. Aryan means the Aryan. You may not know the area as Aryans, but the actual word is
Interesting.
Aryans because the German, the Hitler took it from India,
Yeah,
Sanskrit. Yes.
yeah.
So
Along with the
Aryans is
swastika.
seen, yes. And there is still that misconception that India is this mixture of this Aryan, Dravidian. They're two different things and they're separate. Aryans are this fair skin, noble people. Dravidians are dark skin people, not so noble. Still, the common belief exists in certain ignorant quarters. I'll put it this way: no matter how educated you are, you can be very ignorant, you know, if I may say
Absolutely.
so out loudly.
Absolutely.
So, so because of that, I growing up, I kind of felt that, and as a child, it makes you feel small, and I know how that feels, and I feel that unless you push yourself or somebody helps you to push yourself, it becomes difficult. So I mentioned I was that you push yourself or somebody helps you. Sometimes you need to lend a helping hand or you need a helping hand to have that courage to say out loud. Okay, and I think every time I think we have to be inclusive. Not everybody has a loud voice, not everybody is brave enough because life has made them a certain way. And I think it is all of us needs to lend a hand, whoever needs a hand, you know.
And
And yeah, and in terms of okay, what was I was going to say just now? We have to be audacious and what was this? Oh gosh, I forgot what
what?
I was
No, no,
going
you're
to
no, you're fine. You're fine. What
say.
stuck with me was not everyone can have a loud voice. Not everyone can
Yeah,
really stand up and
and
fight. Yeah.
right at the same time, I was born in privilege. Same time, I'm
Okay.
born of privilege, because my mom was a physical, she was a doctor. I come from a family where I'm surrounded by doctors, engineers, and there are families who probably didn't even get to complete high school in India, still don't. And how can
Yeah.
they have voice if they try to extend their voice, their houses get burned. The Dalits, the untouchable, for example, I'm talking about the lowest of all caste. Think about that
Yeah.
in the US. My words was based on that. So I have a parallel narrative. One side is red, one side is black. I don't know if it's just words. That's it is. And it looks at this parallel narrative of this untouchable class. I use woman because my work is very much about gender. And my family is biracial family. My husband is black. I know my husband's history. Okay. I know your history, where it comes from. Okay. And still there are a lot of people, some have probably managed to break the barrier like you have, but there are still some there who do not have that opportunity. So to me, and they are sometimes dehumanized to the level of being animals and inhumans, because on that black side of the installation, I started with African Americans who were slain, some of them from the earlier ones. I ended with the person, what's his name now, who was shot by police in Charlotte. So that was the last name.
I was thinking Keith Scott, oh God, Keith
Yeah,
Scott
yeah,
Heron.
I
Yeah,
think so. Yeah.
yeah. Oh
Um,
no, oh my
no,
gosh.
not
Lem-
Keith. No, hold on. I have it written here probably.
Thank you,
Words.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, I'm
I
drawing a
don't
blank. I'm
know.
so sorry. Keith Lamont Scott.
Words. Yeah, hold on. Did I put it? Oh no, I don't know if I did or not.
Yeah, if it's who I'm
Uh,
thinking, I think what's wild is that I know the
yeah,
officer,
it's, I
so that
think
was
it's
even
Keith
more
Lamont
jarring.
Scott. Yes, you were right,
Yeah,
and we are right. Keith Lamont Scott was shot and killed by police. So it ends
yeah.
with his. So I started that, and I used stenciling process, and my thing was, and I researched and I found all these derogatory names that are applied to Black people in the U.S. and and they were layered and layered and layered, and it ended up with those names. And I realized to my grief that at the end, I couldn't see any of the names I started with. All that was bold and visible was this. And that is the reality. Each of those young
Yeah.
men and women that were killed, based on what said, they are inhuman. They don't deserve to live. They're monsters. A police with his gun thought that a bareheaded person is going to kill him. Okay, so what does it say to you? And the other side has similar thing is red, and it has all those horrible words that are said about women in the scripture, in some of these religious texts, what women are, what should be done to them if they do not, things of that nature. So to me, the privilege gives you a responsibility. I see it that way. It is my privilege. It gives me a responsibility to pull up the others who do not have that. Try to
That's
do
a beautiful.
something in my little way, in our little way, what we can do.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and I'm honored. I'm going to take that as my takeaway for the evening. And again, thank you so much, Professor, for this. It's truly a privilege to even have this conversation with you, and I hope it continues on through other people's actions, through our work as fellow artists,
Mhm.
through my curatorial work. And I agree. I feel compelled to believe that we are obligated with the responsibility,
Mhm.
um, and I appreciate you for indulging me on this in this. Um, Thank you so very much, and I hope you have a wonderful night.
You too. Thank you so much, Jordan. As always, you are really a dear person. From the
I
first
try.
time we met,
I
and
appreciate.
you are doing such amazing work. I am so impressed. I can't tell you how impressed I am.
I appreciate it. I look forward to doing more collaborations. And let's
Yes,
go ahead
I
and
look forward to too.
Thank you so much for watching. That was such a fun conversation. Before we go, I want to update you on a few things. First of all, JTR Presents just launched an artist resource map. This map is intended to centralize information regarding the resources that can be equipment, venue spaces, exhibition spaces, residency programs, or other funding for artists to continue their creative practice and for our voices to still be heard and our stories to still be told. Secondly, there are other resources relating to voting. Your representation and your voice does matter, especially in the upcoming elections. You can find more information somewhere around this video. It's probably at the bottom in the description, but please, please, please get out and vote and make sure you're represented. Third, please donate to your local artist organizations or any art organizations that resonate with you. A lot of times us artists and creatives rely on organizations like the National Endowment of the Arts or our regional or art council that often offer funding for our programs or funding for programs for other organizations or offer funding for us artists to continue our work through residencies or just giving us the money directly. So donate to those institutions so they can continue to empower us to do the work that we're doing. And then lastly, I just want to let you know that your life, your voice, and your money matter, and they make a big difference, even if it's something small. Thank you again. Hope to see you soon. Take care.